We would like to thank your sponsor, Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union and a member-owned financial cooperative serving the Okanagan, Similkameen, and Thompson regions. They offer a wide range of banking and investment services for individuals and families. Valley First also has a talented business and commercial team to provide the expertise, products, and services local businesses need to grow and thrive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Business Matters, presented by Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union. My name is Rob Capello, and today we welcome Brandon Robson to Business Matters. Brandon, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
No problem. So Brandon is a business banking advisor at Valley First. So with high costs of living right now, many are looking to find additional sources of income and utilizing their skills to start side hustles. So today we're going to explore how Valley First can offer maybe the building blocks to those who are looking to start or maybe already started their own side hustle. So I know that some of the questions we're going to cover are like, do we need to incorporate? Do I charge tax? How do I handle accounting? Do I need a bank account? So all that sort of stuff we're going to cover. But before we get started, I'd love if we could just maybe you can let us know a little bit of what your role as a business banking advisor entails. Like what do you do day to day? Who do you work with? What do your members look like that you're working with?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm fairly run-of-the-mill business banker here. If you have business owners, I'll do the banking for their business and for their personal stuff, their mortgage, their investments, and then for their business, the commercial mortgages, lines of credit, cash management, payment solutions, all that stuff. So if you own a business, you sort of have a one-stop shop, which is me for all your banking.
Right.
Which is nice. And there's 8 or 9 of us on my team that stretch from Penticton all the way up to Kamloops. So yeah.
So I'm curious, how long have you been at Valley First?
Almost 2 years now. February will be 2 full years. Prior to that, I was with a big bank for a couple of years, and prior to that, I worked in construction, actually. So, yeah.
So have you been in this role since you joined Valley First, or you started?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in small business with the big bank, and then did a sort of lateral move to this job, and things are very different at the credit union compared to the bank in a good way. But yeah, I've enjoyed it here, and probably will continue to enjoy it for years to come.
So I'm curious, what attracted you to the industry? Because you said you wish to work for one of the big banks. Like what brought you into the industry to start with?
Well, like into banking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was working in construction, and I don't know, I just sort of went down the rabbit hole of personal finance and investment, and I just kind of took a liking to the subject matter. I took the Canadian securities course, and then was able to get hired on my first job in banking just right as an advisor. I didn't have to start as a teller. I initially wanted to be like, oh, one day I'll be Brandon's wealth management and head and have the $40 million book and all that stuff. But my views have changed, and small business in particular, especially like sort of dabbling in startups and not-for-profits, has been more interesting and rewarding. And so I don't know what the future holds, but I'm glad I am where I am, if that makes sense.
What you're doing now. Love it. That's awesome. So let's talk about the topic at hand, which is side hustle. So what are you seeing? Like, are you seeing a lot of members that are starting like a side business or a side hustle? Like, are you hearing and seeing that happening right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I often don't see people. It's just the nature of my role. I don't see them until they have their business established and all that. But I can think of a handful where, yeah, there's just a need for extra monthly money rolling in, and people come up with funky ways to do it. And I think it's a common thread nowadays. Absolutely.
Interesting. So people that are starting, I'm curious, we mentioned some questions earlier, like, do I need to incorporate? And what are some of the questions or concerns people have that, like, if they already started, they're coming to you, what are you hearing from them? Like, where are their, like, maybe some of the bigger questions they're asking you?
I think I think the biggest thing is there's an abundance of resources out there, like how to start a business, and
Right.
you can drive yourself crazy with all these things. And seeing someone like myself, or talking to someone like myself, would be a good way to kind of ground someone from all that, because it's fairly straightforward. Like, are you going to incorporate or be a sole proprietor? Uh, you know, you need to register. Here's the site to do that. Here's what you kind of need to get your bank account, um, which is really a building block of it. Just getting the bank account going, right?
Right.
But yeah, there's tons of different resources and information out there. So people ultimately have lots of questions when they're just getting started.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. So I'm curious, what type of businesses are people starting? Like what are you seeing as a side hustle? What sort of businesses are people starting?
It's all sorts of stuff, man, and it kind of doesn't matter what you do for your day job.
Right.
There are like a neighbor of mine, he started a leatherworking
Hmm.
business, makes, high quality leather products, all because he wanted a wallet that was going to last his lifetime. So he learned how to make it. His
Right.
friends wanted some, so he sold a few to his friends, and it kind of snowballed from there. Um, I think of a restaurant member of ours. The husband is starting up a painting business just because he knows how to do it. There's demand for it, and so if you can step back a bit and try something else, that's where they're going with that. Yeah.
Interesting. So how you mentioned there's a lot of resources out there. So how do you, or Valley First, or like how do you guys assist someone that's looking to start a side house? Like where do you see your role in that?
So I mentioned before, like people often come to me once they're established, but
Right.
I love having conversations with those people who really have no idea or are just thinking about it. Like, it's awesome. You can have a conversation and make a big impact by, setting them on kind of the right track. So what I would say is, if you came to see me, I would say, like, start with the provincial registry, just like
Right.
gov.bc.ca. That's where you can register your business. That's where they talk about what a sole proprietorship is, what an incorporation is. You sort of get the best of both worlds there. They have the resources and they have the kind of actual paperwork and stuff that you need to
Right.
do.
Right.
Um, so the provincial website is great. And then another one I like is Futurepreneur, actually.
Mhm.
Um, I believe it's a partnership between BDC and I think they're subsidized by a big bank. But anyway,
Right.
there's so much good, like actual good stuff in there. It's not just like scrolling through kind of blog posts where you're reading a ton to really find like this much meat and potatoes at the bottom. They have a ton of good stuff on there, including a business plan writer and cash flow projections. And I use those templates. We have our in-house ones, but honestly, I like these ones, and I've had people use them and actually written applications with them, and um, lent money out with those using those templates.
Interesting. I'm curious. You mentioned some really good resources, but if you had to give, and maybe that is your top piece of advice. So, but if you had to give one piece of advice, like that someone is just starting, what would you say to them? Is it to visit that site and make sure you're registered? Like what would you tell them?
Funny enough, no, my advice, if you have an idea, like an inkling of an idea, you want to try something, get into business for yourself, my my advice would be just do it. Dive in, make the product or service and sell it to one person. Like, that in itself is a big enough undertaking most of the time that you're going to learn a ton along the way. And that's what I kind of said earlier about, like, there's so much information out there, you can drive yourself crazy. You get analysis paralysis, it's called.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really just need to jump in and you'll learn what you need to learn along the way. You have to just jump in and do it.
Interesting. So on
Yeah.
the flip side, what are you seeing? What are some of the mistakes, or maybe common mistakes, you're seeing in this space, like the people are doing when they're starting a side hustle? Like, is there anything that sort of comes to mind?
Yeah, so it's funny. As I say, just jump in and just do it.
Yeah.
Having a plan is not a bad idea.
Right.
It really depends what you're getting into, and I wouldn't say there's a sort of secret sauce or anything.
Right.
But uh, forgive me, Rob.
No, it's okay.
What was your question again?
So what's the common mistakes that you're seeing maybe that people might make when they're starting a side hustle or a business on the side like this?
Common mistakes, I think. Um, Actually, a very common one is people will get their business license from the city and then come in and ask to open a bank account and start doing business under a certain name. And while you do need a business license, you do have to register with the
Right.
province.
Right.
So that's a very, very common one.
Interesting.
Uh, but otherwise, it's hard to say. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it both ways. I've seen people try and run a new venture very lean and
Right.
bootstrap bootstrap it,
Yeah.
as it were. And I've also seen it go the other way, where they come in, take out a loan, try something, and it doesn't pan out. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. I wouldn't say there's common mistakes necessarily. I would more so say that mistakes are a necessary part of the
Right.
process for any entrepreneur.
Or maybe people might be getting into it because if maybe they haven't started a business before and they just don't know what they don't know. Like you said, right? And there's a
Totally.
lot out there. You start, like you said, there's lots of resources out there. So maybe being informed for them, and like even just something as simple, like you said, you have to register. You might
Yeah.
not know. You're like, I don't know. I can just start my business to start selling stuff. Well, you kind of
See, and
can't.
that's a prime example. You come in
Yeah.
and you see someone like me. Hey, I have my business license. I want to open
Yeah.
an account, and there's some knowledge right there. Like, hey, we can't do it yet, but
Right.
here's how you can, and here's where you need to go.
Interesting. So what if you start a side hustle and it like explodes and all of a
Yep.
sudden it's like now it's a full-time business? What advice do you give people that want to make this transition? So maybe, which I think is great, so you want to transition into your own, like what are some things that you think about?
I think the biggest thing there are the tax implications, and then the legal structure. Um, and the fact is, like a banker like myself, we're not experts in either of those fields. We're not professionals. Um, so we would always say, like, we get a kind of general idea of what you're doing, and we sort of know how it works. We hear what accountants say, we hear what lawyers say, but we will tell you, go talk to your accountant, go talk to your lawyer. Here's why. Here's sort of commonly what people might do in this industry, but here's why. So to that point, I think the biggest thing is the taxation and the legal structure. Because you start making a ton of money, it's great, but surely the government needs some of that.
Yeah.
So keep track of it, and that's a mistake I see, not necessarily with startups, but businesses that we've seen fail, is just the mismanagement of funds. The government will come around the end of the year and say, hey, you owe 50 grand in taxes, and
You're not prepared.
not at all. And and I have seen it sink or swim. I've seen it sink businesses for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned the wallet business. I'm curious, have you seen any examples of really cool success stories? Like, is there anything that comes to mind? You're like, yeah, like super cool. Here's a couple businesses that started as side hustles and now are like they're doing it full time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I can think of one, not the wallet guy. Incidentally, he's in school. He's studying for
Okay.
a proper career.
Yeah,
Um, but you never know. Maybe the wallet thing
yeah,
takes
for
off.
sure.
He makes good stuff. But I can think of one local coffee company.
Mm,
Um, Through COVID, they they were sort of in and out of work, and the guy is actually from Colombia. His
mm,
family owns a coffee farm down there, so they started importing, a bag of like a big bag of beans at a
yeah.
time and roasting them. And they were working out of this tiny little interior health approved room in their basement
Mm,
to sort of get this thing off the ground. And now they have, that was a couple of years ago, just through COVID there. And now they've got a location in Rutland. They've been approached by developers in town to have locations in other buildings. And so it's, I mean, that's what they're doing now, full time. That's their gig.
What a cool
Awesome.
story. That
Yeah.
must be, yeah, that's super cool when you can do something that you have a passion for, even if it's on the side and then grows to some of that. I think that's super cool. I'd love to hear that. So is there any closing thoughts or anything like additional resources you'd like to share if someone's thinking about starting a side hustle or maybe have already started it? Is there anything you want to just, maybe some final thoughts that we want to put out there for anyone listening?
Yeah, for sure. I would say start with, a business banker, particularly one at a credit union. We do things in a very granular way,
Yeah.
compared to the big banks. Like, we'll go talk to your accountant. We'll go speak
Right.
to your lawyer. We try to figure things out because we need to. It's just the nature of
Yeah.
how we do things. So someone like me is a great place to start just for advice. Otherwise, yeah, I would say the provincial website, just gov.bc.ca.
Okay.
There's a section for employment and then self-employment under that. There's tons of good stuff in there. Odds are, if you're thinking of starting a business, you want to make a product. Where you're going to get the raw materials and how you're going to process them and
Right.
how you're going to deliver the thing. You got to figure all that out.
Right.
But lean on people like us or colleagues as well. Like, we're not colleagues, I should say, but peers maybe. Like, the old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know,
Mhm.
is so powerful, especially in business. It's relationships that can springboard, these tiny ideas into these massive enterprises that you never would have thought it could be that way, right? So, yeah, lean on people, and like I say, the government website is good. People like myself are good. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Brandon, thanks for joining me today and for sharing some great advice. I echo that if you're starting a business or you want to grow your side hustle, I just say that rely on the expert, like the resources you have with the team at Valley First, and they can provide support resources to help the business. Like, I think I encourage everyone, like start them. Like I said, go for it. Like you said, I love that. Like especially if you can turn your passion into something that's full time. Just be smart about it, right? So you have the resources. It doesn't cost to come in and talk to yourself, or and have a cup of coffee and at least explore what they need to do. So thanks for the great advice. And anyone listening, reach out to Brandon if you have any questions, or if you just want to go in and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, what should I think about? I think that's to me where I think everyone should start. So
I agree. Yeah, totally. And happy to chat with anybody. Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thanks for joining me today for the great advice, and everyone else, have a great rest of your day. And thank you for tuning into Business Matters. Thanks, Brandon.
Rob.
We would like to thank your sponsor, Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union and a member-owned financial cooperative serving the Okanagan, Similkameen, and Thompson regions. They offer a wide range of banking and investment services for individuals and families. Valley First also has a talented business and commercial team to provide the expertise, products, and services local businesses need to grow and thrive.